Hey everyone, Lisa Salvatore. Today we are talking about Jupiter in Pisces. Jupiter, the planet of benevolence and optimism, faith, expansion, higher knowledge and wisdom, the gas giant social planet, the spiritual guru, all of this is Jupiter's domain. Jupiter is known to give us a bit of abundance and luck and prosperity wherever he touches our chart and also our lives. Now, we're going to talk about in this video Jupiter's transit through Pisces, also what this means for us collectively and individually based upon our sun sign and our rising sign. Let's dive right into it. Jupiter is a social planet. It is not quite as close to us as the inner planets are, but it's also not quite as far out as the outer planets are, right? So it's somewhere in the middle. It sits with Saturn, sits around Saturn as a societal planet, a social planet. And so the themes that go under the Jupiter-Saturn themes typically do affect us collectively more so than they do individually on a certain level. Our birth charts always tell another story, and that's separate. But we're really focusing more on the collective transit of Jupiter. Now, you've probably heard many astrologers, many people talking about how they're looking forward to the Jupiter's transit through Pisces. And yes, all within good reason. Jupiter does very well in the sign of Pisces. Now, remember, Jupiter takes 12 years to go through the whole, to go through the zodiac, to go through each sign. It spends approximately 1 year in each sign, and it also does go retrograde throughout that process. But it's important to mention that Jupiter's been in two signs that the last 2 years that are ruled by Saturn. And remember, Saturn is a malefic and Jupiter is a benefic. Saturn seeks to give us structure and order and rules and regulations, where Jupiter wants to set us free. It wants us to heal. It wants us to have faith. It wants us to have fun. It wants us to expand. And so, not that Saturn doesn't, but Saturn asks us to do more work to get to that natural benevolence that Jupiter just has. So Jupiter's been in Capricorn and then in Aquarius and is now in Pisces. But when Jupiter was in Capricorn back in 2019 and 2020, Jupiter met up with Saturn and Pluto. And this kicked off the pandemic. Now, if you think about this, Saturn and Pluto are both malefics. Jupiter is a benefic. Jupiter expands everything. So when Jupiter meets up with the two planets, Saturn and Pluto, of hardship and great rules and regulations and sickness and death even, because Pluto rules over death, when Jupiter moves and gets close to those two planets, what do you think he expands upon, right? Okay, so then Jupiter moved into Aquarius, and we experienced the great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in 2020, at the end of 2020. And again, Aquarius is a very forward-thinking, innovative, inventive sign that's all about science. It's all about medicine. And Jupiter is all about healing. And so Jupiter and Saturn met up. And so again, Jupiter's still kind of constricted by Saturn because Aquarius is also ruled by Saturn. So Jupiter's still getting that Saturnian, fatherly, stern, you can't expand too much, but we'll give you a little bit of hope. We'll give you a little bit of optimism. And if you think back, that happened in the way of vaccines and, medicine and healing. There was hope that was brought in. Things began to shift, into 2021. Expansion, things began to open up again. This is all Jupiter, okay? Now, let's mention, Jupiter entered Pisces in May of 2021 for a little while, so we got a teaser. Jupiter entered Pisces May 13th of 2021 and stayed there until July 28th of 2021. And you always want to give about 2 weeks out on either side when it comes to transitory energy, because we tend to feel it a little bit before. So we had a glimmer. If you can think back, if you can reflect, if you can recall, on the collective scale, we definitely saw things begin to open up. A lot was shifting with medicine. Things were being made available to us that had not been previously. And again, it seemed like there was more hope. Things started to make some headway while Jupiter moved into Pisces. And then Jupiter retrograded back into Aquarius and has stayed there ever since. And then on December 28th, Jupiter officially moved into Pisces and will be in Pisces until May 10th. And then Jupiter is going to go into Aries. Basically Jupiter is going to zip through Pisces, and then it's going to get into Aries when we get to May 11th. And then it's going to move through Aries, and then it's going to go retrograde in October back into Pisces, and then it's going to go direct in Pisces in November, and then it's going to stay in Pisces until December. So sorry if that sounds confusing. So bottom line is Jupiter is going to spend the first 4 months of 2022 in Pisces, and then he's going to move into Aries for a bit and then going to finish out the year in Pisces. So we've got a decent amount of time of Jupiter in Pisces. Now, why is this important? Well, Jupiter does very, very well in Pisces. Jupiter has signs that he is debilitated in, doesn't do so well in, can't work its magic as much. And then he's got signs where he can really, bring his true essence to fruition, right? His effervescence, his buoyancy. That's what Jupiter's all about. And so Jupiter does very well in the sign of Pisces. And Pisces is a sensitive water sign. It's very compassionate. It's very tuned in. It's very empathetic on the highest end of expression. There's this quality of we are one. Kindness is cool. Everybody has a voice. Fight for the underdog. There's also an emphasis on the arts, healing, spirituality, all that mystical, artsy, Neptunian things, because Pisces is also ruled by Neptune. And so when we've got all this with Jupiter and Pisces, all of that can expand. Our faith, our belief, our philosophies, good fortune, miracles, gratitude. Now at this point, I must mention that Jupiter also rules over Sagittarius. So the Sagittarian themes and the Sagittarian values come into high focus with Jupiter in Pisces because, again, it's an energy that Jupiter is comfortable and familiar with. So the other areas that Jupiter rules over, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, are long distance and foreign travel, big business and wealth, higher education, religion, and the law. So again, Jupiter expands. We can see a lot of emphasis on these Sagittarian themes, Sagittarian areas of life. Now, body parts that Jupiter governs, important to mention. Jupiter really has a strong emphasis on the liver, and Pisces is the feet, the ankles, the lymphatic system, the drainage of the body. Sagittarius is the hip and the thighs, but I'm really just focusing more on the liver because, again, Jupiter can expand things. Jupiter can create growth. Now, Pisces, on the shadow side, the shadowy material, because every sign has both, right? We've got the highest end of expression and then we've got the shadow expression. And the shadow side to Pisces energy, and this can be a downfall of Jupiter in Pisces, is Jupiter has a tendency to overdo things. It can be overdramatic, overemphasized, overly optimistic to the point of delusion and deceit, which is the shadow side of Pisces. But this could also be like Pisces rules over escapist personality traits. So also addiction is another topic that falls under the shadow side of Pisces. There's an emphasis with Pisces energy to hide its head in the sand and to numb out. And numbing out can be through music, which is the higher end of expression of Pisces, the spiritual side, the arts, that meditation, psychic work, that's creative projects, music again, I think I said music. That's all the positive end of expression of how we can overdo something or numb out, right, with Pisces. That's not bad. But then on the shadow side, what happens with Pisces energy is that there can be addiction. So this could be drugs, this could be alcohol, pain meds, anything of that nature. That can get amplified. That can get increased. Now, factor in what's going on collectively and factor in, anybody that you know that has tendencies to lean towards addiction. You might want to check on them during this transit because, again, they can feel faithless because remember, this is all about faith also, optimism, hope, and they can lose that under this energy and go towards the shadowy stuff to numb out. So again, if you have anyone in your life that struggles with addiction, has struggled with addiction, a Jupiter and Pisces transit, especially if it factors into their chart prominently, which we don't know unless we know, right? You may want to just check on them because, again, this could be the shadow side of Jupiter and Pisces. But if you use the higher end of expression of the Pisces energy or the Sagittarian energy even with Jupiter there, we can really grow and we can really benefit and we can really change positively. Jupiter is known for tremendous mental and spiritual growth, and that is a wonderful thing. The best thing to remember is that we can attract the good stuff when we remain in a space of compassion for ourselves and compassion for others especially. When we are charitable, when we are devoted, when we are compassionate, when we have faith, when we give to humanity, and when we have faith in the good of humanity. These are times where Jupiter really can extend extra blessings to us. So there's something to be said. When Jupiter's in Pisces, yes, of course, you can receive a gift. You can receive beautiful things, and whichever place it's transiting for you, by sign, which we're going to get into in a little bit here, yes, you can absolutely see an increase of positive activity here. However, you have to remember that in order to receive it, in order to be in the space to accept it, you have to do your part, right? And so part of that is by being honest, being true, having gratitude for whatever it is that you already have, so that when something else comes in, you really can receive it in a higher space. And for those of you that have Jupiter in Pisces from birth, that's your birth placement, you're experiencing your Jupiter returns. This is a very positive and lucky time for you as well, especially because Jupiter will now be back at the place where it was at your birth. So you definitely want to watch for that. The last time Jupiter was in Pisces, just to mention, was in 2011 for frame of reference. If you can even think back that far, track it back, see what was going on for you at that time, especially if you're a Jupiter in Pisces. Now, another thing to mention about this Jupiter in Pisces transit, because again, got to give you the shadow stuff too, because it's not all rainbows and unicorns, right? We would like it to be, we hope it will, we'll pray that it is, but let's be real, it likely won't be. Now, Jupiter is going to come up into an exact alignment, a conjunction with Neptune, okay, on April 12th of 2022. Now, this is extremely significant. Jupiter expands everything. Neptune is the co-ruler of Pisces. So we've got the two planets that rule over Pisces. Very Pisces energy, okay? Let's just start here. And these two planets are going to come into an exact alignment on April 12th of 2022. And again, we want to put some weeks out here because we will feel this as it gets closer and closer. But Pisces is water. Neptune is the god of the sea, known as the god of the sea. Jupiter is the king of the gods. Both seek to expand everything, and we're dealing with water, okay? So I will say, I do feel that there's going to be a lot of water-related situations that can crop up in 2022, especially the first half of the year, and especially as we get from March through July. Don't be surprised if there's an increase in activity with heavy rains, flooding, even a lot of underwater ocean activity also, a lot of emphasis on the ocean, on the marine life, all very possible and likely under this energy. But when we get into that exact alignment of that Jupiter and Neptune, we have not had this since 1856. This is something that none of us have seen before and won't see again. So this is kind of a big deal here, guys. I will say, just a little friendly warning, I should say, or piece of advice, rather, not a warning, it's a piece of advice. If you live near the coast, if you live near the water, just make sure that no matter what, whether you're near the water or not, but especially if you are near the water, make sure everything's on the up and up just in case of any type of flooding or heavy rains. If your roof needs to be replaced or has water damage, you may want to get on that before, sooner than later. And again, if you live near the coast and you live near the water, just make sure that you take your precautions, make sure that your flood insurance is in place, things of that nature. Just remain on the side of caution. It won't hurt, right? Those things are good to do anyway. On the positive side, water can be extremely soothing and healing at this time. We can see a total reshape in pop culture. We can see a really big emphasis on the movies and media and television, just a lot more, maybe even supernatural, and a stronger inclination towards faith and the divine, and also spirituality and psychic energy, psychic work. All of that comes into high focus under these type of transits. But again, there's always a shadow side, so let's keep that in mind. And it's important to mention that greed also comes up with Jupiter because, again, Jupiter can be where we overdo things. And so at times you may overindulge, overpromise, wear your rose-colored glasses, or think better of things, or have blind optimism, blind hope, and blind faith. And so you want to watch that too. You want to maintain a sense of reality amongst whatever is going on in your reality and also out in the world. But at the same time, remaining compassionate, remaining open-hearted, remaining generous, remaining in a space of, we are all one, or we're all fellow men, man, woman. We're all here on this earth together, and we all incarnated here at the same time together. And so we have to keep sight of that because there's so much division and polarization going on these days. It's insane, and we see it everywhere. And I think it's important to remember that at the end of the day, we all came from source, and to source we shall return. And nobody is any better than anybody else, right? That goes for people in positions of power. That goes for us, that goes for everybody. So it's important to remember that, remain humble, remain in that space of conscious awareness, but also hopeful awareness, and knowing that things can get better with a little bit of faith. Now, the sign of Pisces also brings in a strong element of healing. And again, like I mentioned, water features prominently here with this water energy, but also, spiritual healing. This is the time where you can really tap into the other worldly modalities that you maybe haven't thought to do before. Sound healing is another great modality to help along energy. Reiki, if you've never experienced it, is another good way. Being much more tapped in and tuned into the collective energy is also a high focus, but that's also very draining. So you want to make sure that you're taking steps to release energy, to cleanse your energy, okay? And people will ask me, how do I cleanse my energy? Honestly, move your body, drink water. Those are basic ways. But beyond that, sage, incense. Actually, I have a video that I did about protecting your energy, and it has some tips in there about cleansing your energy. I've linked that below, so you can go and check that out. But these are basic ways. There's nothing crazy in there. It's just all about acknowledging that energy gets stagnant. And when energy gets stagnant, it does produce issues, emotionally, physically, spiritually. So we want to make sure that we're keeping ourselves in a space where we can, because Neptune, Pisces, it's very receptive. So we're much more receptive to the collective tone, to the collective energy. And again, let me just reiterate for the umpteenth time that Jupiter serves to increase that, to expand upon it. So just like it expands on all of those good, beautiful spiritual traits of the Pisces sign, it also can accentuate the shadow. And we want to watch out for that. And again, it's just something that keeps coming up is this theme of people choosing to take themselves out because they feel helpless and hopeless. And so I'm hoping that Jupiter in Pisces restores some faith there. But again, I'm going to just say, if you do know someone struggling in your life, it's a time to reach out, because there will be a lot of souls that are clutching by a thread, like literally clutching by a thread, hanging onto that lifeboat, and you may be the buoy for them. And that's Jupiter in Pisces. Be the buoy for the sinking ship. Be the buoy for the person that falls out of the boat, okay? I'm like the worst with these analogies off the cuff, but you get what I'm saying. Be the buoy for someone who falls off that boat and needs to stay up, needs to stay afloat without a life jacket. You want to be that buoy. Remember that, because everybody is always in need. Everybody is always in need of a kind word. I don't care how secure they seem or feel, whatever. Everybody always needs that. And so, especially if you know people that are floundering, this is the time you want to reach out. Just saying, because, it's going to get exacerbated. Even though things seem in some ways to be increasing and lifting, there's also a lot of ways that they're not. And there's also a lot of ways that the division just keeps going further and further and further. Now, again, is 2022 going to be the most amazing year ever? I sure hope so. Am I going to bank on that? No. I mean, we're still dealing with a lot. But I'll say this, but I do feel that we're stabilizing more this year. It is lighter. We've had some heaviness, let's be real. So even a little bit more lightness to me, is just a lot lighter. So, and I do think that this Jupiter in Pisces transit will help out a lot. So the first 4 months of the year, again, can bring in some benefits for you individually and collectively. Now let's go into this by sign, by sun sign and rising sign. Which area of your life could you see Jupiter's blessings bestow upon you? And I hope and pray that they do. Okay, so before we get to the signs, one other thing I want to mention. If you know your Jupiter placement, if you know what house Jupiter falls in your birth chart, then you can absolutely listen to this video and apply that for you there as well. So this is going to be, I'm strictly talking about transiting Jupiter by sign, but also you can apply this to your chart, okay? So if you are an Aries sun or an Aries rising, this Jupiter in Pisces transit will take place in your 12th house. Now, the 12th house is the house of Pisces. Pisces rules over the 12th house, so it's got that natural Piscean energy here. So the 12th house is a water house. It's the last house of the wheel. Things kind of go to bed in that 12th house. There's an introverted and introspective behind-the-scenes quality to the 12th house. 12th house is also very, very spiritual, very psychically driven, very unconscious. So you could be feeling a lot of internal, introspective ways of positive expansion under this Jupiter and Pisces transit for you, Aries. Also, there's this energy around your psychic work, meditation. If you're interested or wanting to expand your practice in that way, This would be an amazing transit for you to do so. And for those of you that actually work in this in any kind of field of energy, so let's say you're a Reiki practitioner, or you are a yoga instructor, anything, a massage therapist, anything that's energy related, you may find that through your energy healing and energy work, your abilities truly do expand, and you're tapping into people much more than ever before, which can feel exhilarating, but comes with this warning: protect your energy, because you are much more receptive, especially when you've got Jupiter transiting the 12th house. Taurus. Jupiter in Pisces will be transiting your 11th house, the house of groups and friendships and associations, also the house of where we do our humanitarian stuff, our humanitarian research, let's just say. So Jupiter in Pisces there could really give you a nice increase in the friendships that you acquire or that you're already a part of, also the groups that you enter into or are already a part of, the associations. There could be a lot of positive expansion that happens here in those areas with Jupiter in your 11th. I also want to mention, for some of the Taurus Sun and Taurus Rising listening to this, there could be an animal that comes into your life under this Jupiter in Pisces transit. Let's say you've always wanted a dog and your spouse doesn't want you to get a dog, and you're like, well, I worked my magic, or Jupiter worked its magic, and this dog just showed up on my doorstep and doesn't have a home, and now it's microchipped and everything, and we're taking it. That's how Jupiter can work for you here, Taurus, in one of many different ways. Gemini Sun, Gemini Rising, this Jupiter in Pisces will take place in your 10th house. The 10th house is very public. It's your face out in the world. It's your public reputation. It's your career, it's business opportunities. You can find that if you've been working really hard, you can get a raise of some kind, or some business or work opportunities come in for you. The 10th house is also our status. So your status can change under Jupiter in the 10th for the better, mostly for the better. But remember, again, there's something to be said here about integrity and honesty in all of our dealings when we're dealing with Jupiter, in order to really reap the rewards and the benefits of the true Jupiterian generosity. Cancer. This transit will be in your 9th house. The 9th house is also a Jupiterian ruled house, because it's the house ruled by Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter. So again, natural Jupiterian energy funneled into your life right now, Cancer. There's an emphasis on knowledge, higher knowledge, furthering education of any kind, maybe learning a foreign language if you've always wanted to. Publishing could come your way if you've been looking to publish something or put some work out in the world. It's just overall very inspirational for you at this time, Cancer. Leo, this transit will take place in your 8th house. Okay, so the 8th house is a water house. It's ruled by Scorpio. It's quite intense here. This is the house of the taboo. It's the house of secrets. It's the house of joint finances and legacy and inheritances. Legal issues can fall under the 8th house. Also, strong bonding and intimacy and sex, all under the 8th house. So when you've got Jupiter in Pisces here, there's an expansion of all of these things, or of situations surrounding any of those topics. Positively, you can be much more focused on any type of strategy or investigative work that you're doing. And there's a real willingness to go deep. And honestly, if you're not trying to, Jupiter may just bring it in anyway. Okay, Leo? Virgo, this transit will take place in your 7th house of partnerships and contracts and alliances. Marriage partners fall under here. Legal contracts fall under here. Legal matters and negotiations, all under the 7th house. So Jupiter in Pisces here can serve to bring things up of that matter, and also resolution. So you can get an answer that you've been looking for, or a settlement that you've been waiting for. It can really go positively and in your favor, as long as you're remaining all about the details, as my Virgos always do. Libra, for you, this takes place in your 6th house of health and daily service. Business dealings and charity work also fall under the 6th house. So a really good way for you to receive all of Jupiter's blessings is, well, this is for everybody, but more so for you because of this 6th house, is giving back. Now, caution with the 6th house with Jupiter here. There can be a tendency to overdo sweets and or rich foods, so you want to watch that under this transit, Libra. Scorpio, for you, this will fall in your 5th house of pleasure and play and creative projects and children. Also the way that we have fun. So this could be a very playful time for you. You can get involved in a new love affair, or a current relationship can be injected with more fun and with more romance. Children can also be a really strong source of joy for you at this time. If you're looking to get pregnant, this could be an amazing time for that, as Jupiter's in your 5th house, and this is fertility also. Sagittarius, Jupiter is your ruling planet, and Jupiter in Pisces will be transiting your fourth house. The fourth house is the house of our home, our roots, our security, our foundation. It also takes us back to the earlier years, to the home life, to the family of origin. Our instincts can be very, very strong right now. Our intuition totally hyped up, and the home life comes into high focus. So this is the time, if you've been looking for a new home, if you've been trying to refinance, Jupiter in Pisces here in your fourth house could really serve to help you out at this time. Capricorn, this transit will take place in your third house of communication, short distance travel, siblings, cousins, those that are like siblings and cousins. This can be a happy time for you of connecting with others or reconnecting with others. You could also get started on a writing project that you feel like you've had no steam with. And there's something here about planning ahead and feeling very optimistic about the future. Aquarius, this transit will take place in your second house of self-worth, of money, of what we value, of what we prioritize. It's the house of our personal possessions. This can be a very resourceful time for you, Aquarius. I would just caution you about overspending, because it's the second house of money, or overeating, overdrinking. Again, we're dealing with creature comfort, so we don't want to overdo it in those areas. Also, anything with investments. It's probably a luckier time for you, but again, just be careful not to overdo it, because you can get overzealous and really, put yourself in a space that you just got yourself out of. So be a little bit mindful of that. But otherwise, Jupiter in the second is a great money-making transit, actually. You could see some increase in income from some form. Typically with the second house, it's our money. So it's likely coming in from yourself. You're making more money. It could be a really good time for you. Pisces Sun and Pisces rising. This transit will take place in your first house, the house of self, the house of I am. This is a very strong, positive time for you, Pisces. You can have a lot of attention, a lot of eyes on you, a lot of opportunities, a lot of benefits coming in from other people in your life as well. This could be just a really overall positive and amazing time for you. I will caution you, whenever Jupiter transits our first house, I've seen this many, many, many times, there's a potential to gain weight, because think about it. Jupiter's like the jolly old uncle. He's benevolent. He's fun. He wants us to live life. He wants us to do it all and just have a great time while we're doing it. And the first house is the physical body. And so we can absolutely overdo vices at this time. We can overeat. We can overdrink. We can overexercise even. We can overindulge in any area. And so just watch that, because that's the shadowy side to the Jupiter in Pisces. The Jupiter in the first house transit, no matter what sign. When Jupiter transits your first house, there is potential to, I've seen it time and time again, and I've had clients actually thank me for making them mindful of it, because they would find themselves like shoving potato chips in their mouth at 10 o'clock at night, which they normally wouldn't do, because they were just feeling a lot happier and a lot more fulfilled, which Jupiter on the positive side really does do for us. It brings it in. So anyway, that is Jupiter in Pisces in your first house. It's an amazing transit for you. Like I said, lots of good fortune and good luck. If you're this Pisces, you're having a Jupiter. If your Jupiter is in Pisces, I should say, you're also having your Jupiter return. And so this applies to you as well. Now, while all of the signs will reap the benefits of this Jupiter in Pisces transit, I feel that the signs that are going to achieve the most from this transit are the mutable signs. Pisces, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Gemini. And all four of these signs will have Jupiter in Pisces transiting through the angular houses. So the first house, we've got Pisces, has their Jupiter transit there, and the fourth house is Sagittarius, and the seventh house will be for Virgo, and the 10th house will be for Gemini. So those are the angular houses. So I do feel that the mutable signs will more than likely reap the rewards of Jupiter's blessings. But all of the signs will, let's be fair, let's be clear. And also at the risk of overpromising, because that's a Jupiterian shadow side, right? I don't want to overpromise. I don't want to say that this transit's going to be magical and everything's going to be fantastic after this. No, but I will say I do feel that after a long, bleak 2 years, in many ways, that this could bring in some light, some fun, some buoyancy, some positivity. And hey, why not? Something to look forward to, right? And also there's a potential to really see some magic when it comes to people working together, being together, honoring one another, loving one another deeper, and having more compassion and more empathy for each other. All themes that fall under Jupiter. And again, with Jupiter in Pisces, it's very sensitive. You may find that you're much more emotional than normal, or picking up on the energy much more than normal. And if you're somebody who's naturally sensitive, this can feel like waterworks for you. But again, just remember that, well, actually, I'll show you my shirt because I just realized, be kind. Just be kind. That's a very Jupiterian trait, right? Jupiterian theme. Be kind. Be caring, be honorable towards one another. And I will recommend a really great book called A Paradise Built in Hell, which speaks to human altruism. And I think it's a great Jupiter in Pisces book. So you may want to check that out. And yeah, that's it. Take really good care of yourselves, everybody. I hope that Jupiter and 2022 are very, very kind to all of you. And I'll be back soon with another video. Bye.